Hey everyone, Alex here with episode number 20 of Sports the NEMO Way, where we will be discussing Chris Webber, who will be defended by Uncle Doug and Drew, who have him at 48 and 49, so almost identically ranked. But per usual, before I turn it over to the defenders, I will cover his career a little bit. The 6'9", 245-pound power forward played for the Golden State Warriors, Washington Bullets, Sacramento Kings, Philadelphia 76ers, and Detroit Pistons. He's a zero-time champ, zero-time MVP, five-time All-Star, five-time All-NBA, Rookie of the Year, and 15 years in the league after being taken number one overall in the draft, with career averages of 29 and 4 on 47% shooting. All right, Doug, Drew, take us away.
All right, well, as the elder one, I'll go ahead and start here. C-Webb is my ninth power forward. As usual, I think 10 was probably an old guy. And it was way down on my list. He's one of the last guys on. But yeah, I still think he had a decent career. He peaked out at 27, 13, and 5. His average points per game of 20.7 is 54th all time. When in the all-time list, he is 98th at 17,000 and change. The rebound list, his average of 13 at 9.8 is 67th, and he's 78th on the all-time list. In assists, he's quite a bit farther down the list. I've compared C-Webb to guys like Chris Bosh, Dennis Rodman, Pau Gasol, Bob Pettit. That was some of the people that were on the bottom of other people's lists. Now, I also had Bob Pettit on my list. Bosh and Gasol, not so much. But they were close. Rebounding-wise, C-Webb was a 9.8. Bosh was an 8.5. Gasol was a 9.2. Rodman and Pettit are both quite a bit higher on rebounds. Steals, actually, for these guys, it's not a big stat, but he was 1.4 compared to 0.8, 0.5 for Bosh and Gasol. Blocks, 1.4 for C-Webb, 1 for Bosh, 1.6 for Gasol. Points, 20.7 for Webb, 19.2 for Bosh, 17 for Gasol. Again, not a huge difference. He was a little better than Gasol on the points and a little better on rebounds. He was a little better than Bosh on both those things as well. So that's kind of the reason he made the bottom of my list instead of those two. I happen to, if you were asking me personally, I personally probably like Pau Gasol better because I'm a Laker fan.
I wonder why.
Because I'm a Laker fan. I also like the Toronto Raptor, Chris Bosh. I was kind of surprised at some of C-Webb's numbers. C-Webb had an interesting career. I saw, again, another reason I probably ended up with him on my list is a little bias from the Fab Five. I remember watching him play at Michigan. That was an exciting bunch of players to watch. I won't say he was my favorite of that bunch. I kind of liked Juwan Howard. Didn't nearly have the pro career. I also liked Jalen Rose. But let's see. C-Webb. Oh, sorry. Those are both. We can talk. Part of his problem, I think, with some of his point-wise, as you talked about, his peak was 27 and 13. He did have some knee trouble. Had microfracture surgery at least, I want to say, a couple times maybe. He had things went down after that. He did have some playoff success. He had about 80 starts in the playoff. Unfortunately, he was about 40 and 40, split down the middle. He did have 31 double-doubles in the playoff and a triple-double, mostly scoring in the 37 times he was 20 to 29, 30 times he was 10 to 19 scoring, so he scored fairly well in the playoffs. He also rebounded well. They had some epic battles when he played for the Kings with the Lakers back in the days. So he had some good times. And ironically, he didn't really want to go to the Kings. Kings franchise before he went was awful. And he didn't want to go play there. But he went, and they ended up having some pretty good teams. And they were a pretty exciting bunch to watch.
Yeah, they were one game away from going to the finals.
Yeah.
Maybe the biggest
Yeah.
hose job in
The 0-2
NBA
Western
history.
Conference Finals.
Yeah.
People always
What's
talk
that
about
ref's name that got caught cheating? That was
Donahue.
that was reffing the game, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. There's been a lot of controversy about that. So, like I said, he did have some playoff success, but no titles. No MVPs, was Rookie of the Year. So, again, he did make the bottom of my power forward list and the bottom of my all-time list. As Wade has mentioned before, when you get to the bottom, there's going to be some discussion. So,
For sure.
I was interested that I thought it was funny that you guys had him at 48 and 49. Like you guys are literally almost put in the exact same
yeah,
spot. So
he kind of snuck
He
in,
snuck
at the
in
bottom.
right there. He's my number 10 power forward, so he snuck in.
is your number 10 as well?
Number 9 on my list.
Number 9.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. So Drew, you got anything to add?
Just a quick little thing. I don't really. What's the difference between Chris Webber and Chris Bosh?
Championships,
So if you put Chris Webber where Chris Bosh was, you think they win too?
probably.
I just want to say that.
Okay.
That was my little comparison that I had in my head. But my dad touched on points and all that, how he's ahead of Chris Bosh and all of them.
Do you want to compare my last power forward to Chris Webber?
I know it's Bob Pettit. Don't even say anything.
That's why Bob Pettit was on my
He's
comparison list.
He's our superior.
And
I'm not
Bob Pettit
arguing.
was on my list.
I'm not arguing your last. We all know he's on my list.
Yeah, I had him higher than Weber, so I really couldn't say too
I
much
bet Chris
about
Webber's better. I'm just joking.
I bet he's not. Does he have an MVP? No.
Yes. Keep telling us these negative things about Chris Webber.
Does Chris Bosh have an MVP?
No, he does not.
No.
All right. Well, Wade, Ray, what you got?
You want to go?
Go ahead.
I mean, I think Chris Webber was really good. When I first started watching basketball, like old enough when I actually watched it, I kind of knew what was going on. It was kind of his prime when he was facing off against Shaq and Kobe in the West Finals. And those Kings teams were really good. Webber and Divock and Christie and Bibby and Jackson and all those guys, they're really good. I don't think anyone here is going to debate that Chris Webber is really good. He was super talented, but I mean, I watched him play and I've looked at his stats and I kind of got to thinking about it. Like, why isn't he considered kind of that lower tier top 10 power forward? And everything I've researched about him came up that he came up short all the time, and that he had some moments where he kind of disappeared, or that he was more interested in having a flashy block than he was actually rotating where he was supposed to and guarding his man. Or this is the stuff I read. I don't know. I don't remember all this stuff. Then I was like looking up on ESPN and stuff like that, and I think they have him ranked like 66 in the all-time list. So that's still a decent ranking. Yeah,
I believe Bill Simmons in the basketball pyramid has him at 90.
Yeah, I think he's kind of a what if. I think everyone talks about how supremely talented he was. He could do. I think his all-around game was probably better than a lot of other power forwards on our list, to be honest. I mean, his passing was extremely good. Obviously, he rebounded and scored very well. I don't think his defense was great, but I think it was okay. But it kind of seems like he came up short in a few different areas, and a lot of that I read anyway said that he was interested in looking good and being flashy than he was doing what he's supposed to, I guess. But I don't know. But I'll let Ray go.
Okay. I really enjoyed watching the Sacramento teams. That was probably my second favorite team at the time, watching them, because I really like Bibby and I like when Jason Williams come in. So it was a really exciting time to watch that team besides the Pacers. But I'm looking at the stats and I'm boggled by this one. He played 15 years and he's only got 831 games in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I don't know. That's pretty crazy when I look at that. But I mean, even with the games, he's still got a killer, pretty stat line besides like the last, 4 years. I mean, the stat line looks really good. But it just boggles the mind with that 831 games.
He averaged 55 games a year for his career,
Yeah, that's pretty crazy to me.
which is Kawhi Leonard-esque.
Well, I wasn't gonna say it. I wasn't gonna be on that bandwagon of name drops.
I mean,
I was gonna try and stay away from
Two.
that.
2 less championships. That's fine. 2 less Finals MVPs. 2 less Defensive Player of the Year awards.
Defensive player of the year. But yeah, I really like Chris Webber. I have nothing against him. I just like Wade said, he just never really went to that next level when it needed to be done, especially when it was his team that he was leading the charge on. So,
Well, to piggyback on what you said, Ray, those Kings teams were fun to watch.
oh yeah,
They were very good.
But they had two really good passing big men with not only C-Web but Vlade Divac.
The whole.
They-
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say Peja Stojakovic, Doug Christie, Mike Bibby, Bobby Jackson, Gerald Wallace,
oh yeah,
even
Bobby Jackson.
mom's favorite Scott Pollard.
Oh, we gotta love Scott Pollard.
Oh yeah,
Then,
Uncle Doug was no.
Brad Miller came.
oh yeah. I
after
love me
that.
some Brad Miller.
Oh yeah, Brad
Oh,
Miller.
yeah.
Anyway, those Kings teams were really fun to watch. But Wade can back me up on this. I've said multiple times. I actually made a big deal about it a couple years ago. I think, and I still stand by it, that Chris Webber is the most talented power forward of all time. He could do more on the basketball court than any power forward ever. He was more all around. He had great footwork, great hands. He was a very good rebounder, shot blocker. He had a phenomenal jump hook with both hands. If he's not the best, he's one of the best passing big men of all time. He had a nice jumper. He was athletic, very athletic before his knee injuries. Strong. He dribbled well, so well that he used to lead the break like a point guard when he after a rebound.
Oh yeah.
It was like C-Web was built in a lab to be the perfect power forward. But that's the problem. What did he do with it? He doesn't have any rings. He barely has any awards. He couldn't even consistently make the All-Star team. Here's the big one that I haven't been able to say too much, is he's not a Hall of Famer.
Ooh yeah.
Is he in the finalists this year?
He is in the finals this year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
He's been in it a couple times. They just keep not letting him in for whatever reason. So I feel like Chris Webber squandered his career. C-Web had issue getting along with people during the course of his career, whether it was coaches, teammates, general managers. He was drafted by Orlando and traded for Penny Hardaway. So he was in Golden State, where he was coached by Hall of Fame coach Don Nelson. He played with two guys on that team that were all NBA, Tim Hardaway and Latrell Sprewell,
Ooh,
which was second
okay.
team All NBA that year, before he, a couple years later, choked out his coach. And All-Star Chris Mullen, who was on Ray's list, was also on that team. And they made the playoffs, and Chris Webber won Rookie of the Year. And Chris Webber told the Warriors, either fire Don Nelson or I'm opting out of my contract. Because back then, rookies had stupid things in their contracts, like an opt-out after the first year. That was before the CBA took over rookie contracts, and you were guaranteed 4 years or whatever. So, so the Warriors would not fire Don Nelson, and they traded Chris Webber because he didn't want to play in an up-tempo offense to the Washington Bullets, which are now the Wizards, for those of you that might be confused, where he played alongside his former Fab Five teammate, Juwan Howard. And the other big on that team was Rasheed Wallace, who played. Those two played a lot because Webber didn't hardly play the 4 seasons he was in Washington. And their point guard was Rod Strickland.
Oh yeah.
This was a very, very talented Washington Bullets team.
Oh yeah.
But Chris Webber was too busy getting stoned all the time and partying and not playing in games and being a jerk to take advantage of another super talented team that he could have done really great things with. And he eventually forced his way out of town there because of his actions. And the Hall of Famer, all-time great Wes Unseld, who was the GM of the Bullets at that time, said, Weber doesn't understand what it means to be an NBA player, and I don't think anybody will ever win with Chris Webber. Well, it turns out he was right, but hey, who knows? But he was traded to Sacramento, where Uncle Doug said earlier he did not want to be, and was very public about how he did not want to be there. Well, then, after a year, he was a free agent, an unrestricted free agent. And two teams offered him a contract. The Sacramento Kings and the then terrible, awful Detroit Pistons. So he re-signed with the Sacramento Kings because nobody else tried to pay him. I think, and you couple that with now that he does not speak to any of his Fab Five teammates, I think that says a lot about Chris Webber's character, or at least as a teammate. Whether he's a good person or not, I don't know. So that goes into part of why I think he squandered his career. But with Webber's numbers, Uncle Doug touched on some of his numbers earlier. Webber, in scoring, Webber is 18th all-time among power forwards, behind guys like Chris Bosh, who he played 3 more seasons than. Behind other guys like Pau Gasol and Tom Chambers.
Don't even we don't even want to talk about old Tom, even though, yeah.
He's 25th all time among power forwards in rebounding, behind guys like Sean Kemp, Pau Gasol. He's 16th all time among power forwards in blocks, behind guys like Sean Kemp, Pau Gasol, and no defense Dirk Nowitzki.
Hey, last episode we talked about Dirk getting 100 blocks that one season.
Yeah.
Don't be distant.
So now maybe part of the problem is over his 15-year career, he only averaged 55 games a year, so that maybe hurt his overall numbers there. And I know from previous debates, Uncle Doug doesn't like the total number debates. He likes the per game stuff.
Sorry to interrupt, but I was going to say, just real quick on the total number thing. You're right. Bosh did outscore him. They're right next to each other. They're like 98 and 99, or 98 and 97, and they're about 7 points apart.
Yeah.
And Bosh actually played 60 more games.
And 3 less seasons.
Right, 3 less seasons, but he played more games and only scored 7 more points. And Powell did outscore him, but Powell played 400 more games. Anyway, go ahead.
So I do have the per game rankings among power forwards, where he is 10th all time among power forwards in points per game, 12th in rebounds, 13th in blocks. So that's where he falls in the points per game. But the other thing that really bothers me about C-Web, and this is some of it's a me thing, is the inconsistency of his numbers over his career. And this is what I mean. Like his field goal percentage. He has a season where he shot 55% from the field.
Oh.
He also has a season where he shot 43% from the field. Or his three-point percentage, where one season he shot 3 threes a game and shot 44% from 3.
Oh, nice.
And then a couple seasons later, he shot 7% from 3. 7. His free throw percentage, he shot 75% one year, and then 2 seasons later shot 45%. His rebounds, one year he leads the NBA in rebounds per game at 13. And then another season he averaged 7.6. Blocks, his rookie season, He averages 2.2 blocks per game, the highest of his career. 5 or 6 years later, he averages 0.9 blocks per game. And all of these are during his prime and pre-injury. I did not pick on him late in his career like, oh, well, in his 15th season. I didn't do that. Those are all during his prime, which raises a lot of questions for me. I don't have the answers to those questions necessarily, but like free throw percentage, bro. 75 and 45, that's a 30% swing in a couple of seasons. Was the effort? Was it practice? Was it injuries? I don't know. Did you have hand injuries that stopped you from shooting well for a couple seasons? I don't know. But his numbers are all over the place. Like when you just like scroll down his career numbers, it's just like you can't get a read on where he's at in anything outside of maybe points per game. At the end of his career and the beginning of his career, they're slightly lower. In the middle, they're obviously higher. But everything else is just all over the place, and it's real inconsistent to look at. Which I think, once you add in the character stuff, kind of comes together with, I don't know. These are the reasons, though, I don't have Chris Webber on my list.
Can I ask you a question, Alex?
Yes, sir.
Do you think Chris Webber is a Hall of Famer, in your opinion?
Yes, I would vote for him to be in the Hall of Fame if I had a vote. I do not. They won't let me vote.
Well, I just wanted to ask you.
But I will tell you this. I really liked Chris Webber growing up. Wade and I used to collect Chris Webber basketball cards.
I have his jersey for Sacramento. Yeah.
So I really like Chris Webber. I don't want to say he's on the Grant Hill level for me because I really liked Grant Hill. But Chris Webber was always really good. Like I said, I think he's the most talented power forward of all time. But I think that hurts him because in the back of my mind, I'm always like, bro, you could have been so much better than you were. I mean, you averaged 27 and 13 one year. Why didn't you do that for 5 or 6 years? Why wasn't your prime 25 and 12 instead of one season? Why did it take you bouncing around all these teams because you were a dickhead? Bill Simmons said he has a whole podcast episode about Chris Webber, and during that he said, if you had Chris Webber redo his career 10 times, this was the worst possible outcome.
Wow, that's raw.
Webber had a huge amount of talent. You're right, and he did have. Now I didn't know about I knew about some of the NBA stuff. A lot of his trouble came with the University of Michigan. I did do a little digging into that just because I was interested. He has now started talking to, I think, Juwan Howard. Now that Juwan is the coach at Michigan, he is back at Michigan. He was actually banned. Webber was banned from the University of Michigan for 10 years.
Was he really? For 10 years?
For 10 years. Over the scandal that occurred after the Fab Five were there. Actually, and it's interesting that the first Michigan coach to invite him back was Jim Harbaugh. He invited him back to a football game to appear, do the coin flip and stuff like that, and then Juwan Howard became the coach after that. So he's starting to heal a little bit of that stuff. The whole Michigan issue goes back to money. He got money from some agent guy back when he was in high school. Well, there's a debate about the high school. The state of Michigan refused to make his high school forfeit their games and state championships because they said they couldn't find any evidence of him taking money during high school. But he did get paid supposedly what he was at Michigan. This guy was trying to become his agent or get in close with him. And I think Webber has had a problem with that kind of thing. I think he always felt like players should be paid in college, which is a big debate now, and he's heavily on the pay the player side of that.
All the Fab Five guys are.
Yeah.
Jalen Rose, Juwan Howard, they're all like, Michigan made a ton of money on us, and we didn't see any of it.
Right. And so I call it a character flaw, call it whatever. I feel like some of his issues were he just felt like he was above it. I mean, he was that good that, and like you said, I will agree with you. He did not live up to his talent. And some of the things that happened at Michigan did bother me. That's, again, why he's so far down my list.
Well, it seems, I mean, I've watched the Fab Five documentary, and I listen to Jalen Rose a lot because I like Jalen Rose, but it seems the big divide, originally at least, between the Fab Five guys was they all got paid. All five of them did. But four of them admitted to it, and Chris Webber denies it.
Right, yeah, he lied about it.
Even though they've now proven that he got at least $100,000.
Right.
And the other ones didn't get anywhere near that. And now they're like, we have it. Like, we know you did it. And Chris Webber's like, well, he knows it now, I guess. But he didn't for years. And even most of his NBA career, if not all of it, he would deny it.
Oh, yeah.
And
for a long time he denied it.
Jalen Rose and Juwan Howard and those guys are like, oh, yeah, they gave it to us. Like, Jalen Rose has just laid it out there. I can't remember the guy's name. He's dead now. The guy that gave him the money. He was...
Yeah, I can't remember his name either.
But
he was big in Michigan basketball.
Yeah, he was a booster
that
for
whole
Michigan.
scene. Yeah,
and he was like, anytime they wanted something, they could ask him, and he'd give it. Like Jalen Rose is like, a lot of times it was just like, hey man, we want some pizzas, or hey, can you get us a car for the weekend to go on some dates or whatever. Like it wasn't like always just handing them cash or buying them expensive shit like jewelry and cars and stuff like that. A lot of times it was just like, hey man, we're trying to eat. We want some food. Can you order some pizzas? And the guy would send pizzas to their dorm, or just stupid like, hey, none of us are able to have cars, like, or can afford cars, or freshmen aren't allowed to have cars on campus. Like, can you loan us some cars this weekend to take some girls out or whatever? It wasn't always like what we think of, like bags of money and I bought your mom a house and whatever the crazy stuff is, But those guys were all like, yeah, we did it. Yeah. And Weber won't say it or didn't say it.
Well, there's even some of the things that I read. There's some people claim that Weber got money as far back as middle school from that guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's why there was such an investigation into his high school years. Because, I mean, I guess his high school team was pretty dominant, maybe 2 or 3 state titles. And they couldn't prove it all. But, yeah, there's some people that say he may have gotten money from that guy as far back as middle school, trying to make sure he went to Michigan and help the kid out and so on. So, yeah, he definitely kind of had an entitlement there. Felt like he was good at basketball and somebody ought to be paying him.
I mean, I don't disagree with his theory there. I mean, you're going to get an education, but, I mean, you're not really getting more than that if you're really on, like, slave wages, next to nothing besides you paying to get an education. So, I mean, you got to think at least you earn something, playing and they, selling the merchandise and selling the tickets and everything else, and all you get to do is, get a degree that you pay for.
I don't agree with anything you just said. I don't know if I want to turn this into a whether they should pay college students debate, but
okay.
I do agree that at least big time athletes bring a lot of money into their colleges.
Oh yeah.
And but it's very rare that athletes are good enough to do it. The Fab Five may be exceptions to that rule. Or at least a couple of them, Weber and Rose, maybe.
Right. I think with the whole college thing, they need to take a hard look at, the majority of the student athletes are really there to get an education. But you've got a lot, or you've got some that are the really talented guys that aren't there for an education, especially with the one-and-dones that we have now. And maybe we need to take a different look. Maybe those guys don't even need to be in college. Maybe basketball needs a minor league, which I think they're trying to do with the G League maybe. More like baseball. So the kids from high school can start making money right away. Because, I mean, the Fab Five, I think most of those guys came from pretty poor backgrounds, and their families needed the money, and those kids needed the money. It's a hard conversation, and it needs to be addressed.
Yeah. It's gonna be interesting to see how the college thing turns out. It's heated up over the years, and we've had multiple kids over the last few years go play in other countries. Now we've got 3 this year that play in the G League instead of playing in college. So it's gonna be interesting to see how this turns out. But I do kind of want to steer this back to Weber in the top 50 and what everybody thinks about that. Like I said, I was just trying to point out some character flaws. It kind of seems to me that Weber physically was maybe the most talented power forward ever, and mentally just weak as fuck. I mean, and that's what held him back. I mean, that's kind of where it leads.
That would kind of explain the inconsistency. If
Yeah.
you can't focus, if you're not mentally strong enough to make yourself focus all the time, maybe you do get inconsistent.
I mean, it's definitely a mental blunder to call timeout when you have no timeouts left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Of course, I like North Carolina, so I was okay with that.
right, I like Carolina too. But the other part of this is he didn't do anything like that in the pros. But in big games and big moments throughout his whole career, he played hot potato. He didn't want no part of the basketball. 3 minutes left in the game, Chris Webber was nowhere to be found. If you threw in the ball, he wouldn't even look at the basket. He was at the elbow like he always was, and he wouldn't even turn and look at the basket. He was just looking for somebody to run by so he could toss the ball to him. It was a hot potato thing. And that's why in Sacramento, all those Sacramento times, who took all the big shots? Mike Bibby. Because Chris Webber wanted no part of the basketball.
Weber was probably a 1 talent but 2 mentality.
Yes.
He everybody was paying him or wanting him to be the number 1 on the team, but really he played more like the number 2. And so
I 100%. I was actually going to bring that up here in a little bit. I think Chris Webber's career would have been much better if he was Pau Gasol to Kobe, and not Kobe. You know, because everywhere he went, he was asked to be the number 1 because they're like, oh, this is the most talented guy on the team. You know, he's really great. You know, we want him to be number 1. I think if he'd have been a number 2, it could be completely different. Because the other thing is, too, other than that one season, the 27-13 season, he didn't put up ridiculously high numbers. So it's not like he would have had to step back his game a whole bunch to be a number 2. He was low 20s for most of his career, and 9, 10 rebounds. It's not like, unless he was playing with another dominant big, like if he'd have stayed in Orlando and played with Shaq, maybe his rebounds would have gone down playing with Shaq or whatever. But if he'd have been, I'm trying to think of a really good guard at that time, but he played with Rod Strickland and Tim Hardaway, Jesus. If he'd have been second fiddle, I think his career might have been more successful, really.
I think if he wouldn't have called that timeout in Michigan, I think his mental stability would have been a whole lot different, and he probably could have stood up to be maybe a number 1 on a team. But sometimes that the insecurities after doing a big thing like that, and then you get all the media attention, negative, and then it just blows your mind out of proportion. Some people can take it, others can't. And then you end up with Chris Webber, who's playing hot potato on the team all the time because he's always thinking in the back of his head, am I going to screw this up? Am I going to screw this up? And he's got to dish the ball because he don't want to get blamed like he did in Michigan and have newspaper after newspaper and radio show saying, oh, man, that Webber, he screwed up the game this time. Oh, man, he's never going to live that down. Maybe in his mind, he never did. And maybe that's why he, should have been, he wanted to be a number 2, but he was getting paid to be a number 1.
It does take a special mentality to be that guy that want the ball at the end of the game and to take those shots, because we fantasize it like guys like MJ and Larry never missed one. They missed them. But they just kept taking them. It was like, hey, I know I missed one, but next time I'm shooting it again.
Well, go ahead.
We're going to show my age again. Another TikTok I saw the other day. It was Michael. He says, I missed 27 game winners. And he says, I didn't care. I just kept shooting them. I thought that when you said that, made me think about that. Okay, Wade, go ahead. Sorry.
I just saw a stat one time. It was it had always great all-time great players and their percentages on game winning or tying shots. And Kobe Bryant was at the very bottom at like 30% but he's considered a clutch player. But he just shot a ton of them. Only made 30% of them, but he just did it. So I mean, yeah,
Kobe and Michael weren't afraid.
they didn't care at all.
That's
No.
right. They didn't care. And when the big moment, they wanted the chance to shine. Maybe C-Webb, not so much.
Right. But the other thing is, too, is if he wasn't such a douchebag early in his career, what kind of success could we have looked at then? Because, like, I'm talking, like, you're looking at Weber and Spreewell and Mullins and Hardaway all playing together. And then he gets shipped off to a situation that's almost as good with Howard and Wallace and Strickland. And I'm missing somebody. There was somebody else on that team that was good. It wasn't that level necessarily.
Probably Calvert Cheney.
Calvert Cheney was there. Yes,
Yeah.
you're right. And he played on teams with a ton of talent, and especially in Washington, they were all young like he was. It wasn't like he was playing with a bunch of old vets. So I mean, they could have grown together and blossomed potentially, and he just couldn't get his shit together.
I got a question. I mean, those are all really good players, but I think we'd all agree they're not like all-time greats or anything. Is it his fault? Okay, like we talked about circumstance last episode, kind of. Can we count it against him that he didn't play with Kobe like Powell, or like Bosch played with D Wade and LeBron? I mean, yeah, Rasheed Wallace is good, Spreewell's good, but I mean, he never played with another all-time great. All these other players, McHale had Bird and Parrish. I mean, Malone had Stockton the entire time. I mean, all these other players played with an all-time great. He never did. So I mean, that's something you got to factor in at least.
I mean, it's true. I mean, he played with Hall of Famers.
Like I said, they were good players. I mean, Mullins is a Hall of Famer.
Tim Hardaway's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, he's not. I think they've kept him out.
Did they really?
Yeah, he's the only one of the Run DMC or whatever that's not in.
Oh, that's my bad then. But he's got multiple All NBAs. I know that.
He was good. I mean, he's really good.
Yeah.
And like, a lot of the players you named were all really good players, but they're not.
Isn't the Hardaway deal? Isn't that something off the court?
Yeah,
Why
he's.
they're keeping him
I think
out?
he said a bunch of stupid stuff, and it made a lot of people mad.
He made some comments that people
Yeah.
didn't like.
It
Something
was
like that.
kind of like a baseball Hall of Fame thing.
Right.
One
yeah.
of those numbers. Yeah. But my point was, they're not all-time greats though. Like his best team, he was the best player in Sacramento.
Yes.
I mean, which those teams were very good. Like they were 1 through 7 really good players. But I mean, they're not LeBron, they're not Kobe, they're not D Wade. I mean, they're not Parrish and Bird. I mean, that's something you got to factor. Who you play with is a big factor on how your legacy goes down.
Hey, Tim Hardaway is a 5-time All-NBA, same as Chris Webber.
Yeah. I mean, we all say he's really good.
I
Yeah.
agree. I agree with what you're saying, Wade. It seems logical to follow that. But let me ask you this: if Chris Webber stays there and lives up to his talent,
Are we talking about Sacramento?
no, not Sacramento. I'm talking about either one of the first two stops,
Okay.
Golden State or Washington. Do we talk about one of those players as an all-time great because the two of them formed, or three of them, however many we're talking about, formed a great team and they won a bunch?
I mean, maybe. I mean, that's all possibilities. I mean, that was just something I just want to throw out there. I mean, those were, like you said, really good players. But we all also hit on, though, that those Warriors teams had a losing record when they played together, so I don't know really how great they were.
Well, the Run TMC teams had a losing record.
Yeah.
This was after Richmond was gone by this point.
Yeah.
It was Mullen and Hardaway and Latrell Sprewell.
Mm.
I can't remember who the other starter was, but I mean they made the playoffs that season, and I'm not saying they're world beaters. Like, maybe they wouldn't have won championships or anything like that. He just squandered his way out of winning situations. You know, with a lot of talent around him, because I'm sure guys like T-Mac or Vince or guys that had to play on really shitty teams or wishing they played with 3 All-Stars.
Well, we're also forgetting that Weber played with Iverson.
He did.
He played with Allen Iverson in the
Philly
76ers.
for 2 years.
Yeah.
He did. That was post knee injury though.
He was still good though. I think he broke good stats.
He had a 20 point per game season in Philly.
Yeah, I don't know about their team success, but I know after AI made the finals of 1 year, he pretty much had no postseason success. So they couldn't have gone far. Maybe the second round, but I think it was a first round exit. But yeah.
Well, I mean that was a not that I want to bring you too much into Iverson, but that was a constant quest over Iverson's career, was find somebody that can coexist with him.
Yeah, it didn't really happen.
No, didn't really do that.
Who does everyone have at the bottom of their power forward list? I like to do this just for comparisons.
Gasol and Bosch. He covered mine pretty well.
Yeah.
Wade has Pettit.
I got Pettit and Anthony Davis.
Again, statistically, the current player can't be touched. Anthony Davis's numbers are far superior.
Yeah.
We got Rodman and Kemp.
Okay.
That's why I reviewed some of those guys. I looked at the bottom of everybody's list.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I had C. Webb, Davis, and Dolph Shays, my old guy.
Okay.
Are my three bottom.
I think Weber was we're continuously talking about him coming up short, which he did, and inconsistencies and personality. But, he did average 20 and 9 for his career. As much as he underachieved, 20 and 9 is pretty hard to do for a career average. That's still, and like 4 assists, I think. Was it 4 assists?
Yep, 4 assists.
Which is probably the most impressive part, being a power forward in 4 assists a game.
Well, I think
So,
it's the most impressive part of his game,
Yeah.
his passing. I think it's the most
Yeah,
impressive.
he
thing.
was a good passer.
So, just as much as he underachieved, he's still accomplished a lot. Compared to a lot of players,
Well, here's my question again. I think we may have beat around this in other episodes, but where do we draw the line of, okay, this guy's averaging 20 and 9 or 22 and 10 or whatever, but he only plays 50 or 55 games a season. But we got a guy that does slightly less, but he's here all the time. Because Weber was just continuously missing games his whole career. It was like 9 of 11 seasons at the beginning of his career. He played like less than 70 games or 70 or less games. That's even early when he's young and that's pre-knee stuff.
I think we brought this up 3 or 4 times. I don't think any of us really have an answer. I remember bringing it up with Reggie and another shooting guard. Would you rather have 20 years of a really good player, or, well, not 20 years, but 12 to 15 years of a really good player, or would you rather have like 6 of a phenomenal player, and like a Pete Maravich? I don't know the answer, to be completely honest. I don't know. I'm not really sure. But you can compare him to other power forwards on our list, and I think he's right there with a lot of them. Maybe not the top tier guys, or like you said, Anthony Davis he's currently playing, so his stats aren't as concrete. They're going to go down, pretty much what I'm saying, over time.
Not just that, but we just covered it in our last episode. Numbers are up across the NBA.
Yeah. You compare his career stats to, say, like McHale. I would say Weber's are probably better, to be completely honest. Yeah. No, obviously McHale has championships, but he also played with Bird and Parrish. So, it's hard to decipher all that. Because, he played in the 90s and early 2000s where the NBA was still pretty rough, pretty...
Oh, I don't have a problem with the era he played in. He played majority of his career in the 90s. I don't know. There's a couple things that are hard for me to swallow. And I covered a bunch of things, but 5 All-Star teams in 15 years? That's what are you doing?
How much of that is because he played with Garnett and Duncan and Dirk? Well, Dirk would have been a little... He coexisted with Dirk a little bit. And then you got Malone and Barkley in the 90s.
He coexisted with Duncan and Garnett for 4 or 5 years there.
Yeah. So I don't know how much is that him being him, or him playing with 4 of the greatest power forwards ever. Barkley, Malone, Duncan, Garnett are probably all in our top 6 or 7 power forwards. He played with all of them.
Probably mostly him. Because if you're
some
going to
of
be
it,
good, you're going to be good. If you're going to squander your chance, and you're going to squander your chance, and that's what he pretty much did.
He squandered it, but if he's still dominating, but he's going up against Tim Duncan, who's probably the number 1 power forward in all of our lists, is that because C. Webb squandered it, or because Duncan's a beast?
Well, I don't think anybody here thinks C. Webb's Tim Duncan.
No, but that's players he played for.
No, I get it. And so I'm not saying I expect him to start the All-Star game over Tim Duncan. But Duncan didn't get in the league till what, 98?
97, 98, something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And we're talking about a guy that was drafted in '93.
Yeah.
And
93, you got Karl Malone and Charles Barkley.
right.
I mean,
That's fair.
I'm just saying he played with four of maybe the top 5 or 6 greatest power forwards of all time. He played with all of them.
I agree, but Washington's also on the other conference
Who are we talking about?
than Phoenix and the Jazz.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I don't know who was in the East at that time. Anybody know?
Yeah, I'm not
Power
sure.
forward wise, I'm kind of
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank in the 90s. I'm not sure.
But I don't put a lot of faith in the All-Star games too, but I think the only 5-time All-NBA is probably a little more damaging, which I shouldn't be saying since I'm defending him. But part of the All-Star game too, maybe the old fan voting.
People didn't like it.
You know he's not.
Sacramento.
You know he's not getting any votes.
I mean, Sacramento's not a large market, and even though Washington and San Francisco are bigger towns, they're not really super strong NBA towns. Not like
Yeah.
San Francisco is now with Golden State.
I agree with you. I don't put a ton of stock in All-Star games. It just when somebody is as good and as talented as Weber and they're not making All-Star games, I look at it funny. But I mean, I use the same argument against Ray, so I guess I gotta live it here. Like, if you can't make the Hall, can you make the top 50? I mean, this point may be moot in a couple months, but they've left him out like 3 or 4 times now. They just won't let him in. I don't know. There's just again, part of it is because he was so talented, but he didn't accomplish much. Like he didn't. Like you're looking at 0, 0, 5, 5. You know, like as far as championships, MVPs, All Stars, All NBAs. He did win a Rookie of the Year, but there's no other awards either. It's not like he, won Most Improved or Sixth Man or any of those. There's nothing else.
Yeah.
And by the way, this is a question. He won a rebounding title. Okay,
Yeah.
I can't remember what year it was.
98, 99.
13 per game, right?
13 a game. He only played 50 games that season. Where's the cutoff?
I think it's about 50. I think it's
Is
like
it?
50.
Yeah, I think the cutoff is about 50 games.
Yeah.
I was gonna say because I'd be pissed if I was the guy that played 80 games and averaged 12.5 and he got the rebound title.
Yeah.
He played 50 games.
You end up with like 400 more rebounds than
Yeah,
him.
yeah.
Just to answer an earlier question about other power forwards in the 90s, Rodman. You know, it's Rodman. Oakley. Prime. You might laugh at this, but he had a couple of phenomenal years. Prime Derek Coleman was in the East.
Yeah, Derek Coleman.
Larry Johnson. He was
Yeah.
a monster for a few years.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, I
Mama.
forgot about those guys.
So those were the Eastern Conference guys he would have been going against for depending on when you. Yeah, because like Coleman was with the Nets.
Yeah.
Right.
Johnson.
Charlotte.
And then didn't he play with the Knicks for a while too?
Yeah,
That
but
was
he was pretty
99.
washed.
Pretty
at that
old,
point,
yeah.
though.
Yeah, but Prime Coleman was very good. And
Well,
prime Larry
honestly,
Johnson was
if-
very
If
good.
you're gonna talk about talent, Coleman's the guy that actually compares to Weber.
Yeah.
He's
Coleman
another
was
guy that
good.
squandered a career because Coleman could do everything you wanted on a basketball
Did
field.
he have
Yeah, he
drug or
was
alcohol
good.
problems or something like that? Was it him or I think it's someone else?
I forget what happened to
I
him.
don't remember. I was still pretty young at that point.
I can't quite remember.
Yeah, I don't remember what happened to him.
But yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. Weber's just a really weird case for me.
I'm telling you, the bottom of the list get real tricky. Real
Mm-hmm.
tricky.
They do.
We're switching people in and now that are
Well,
some of them are similar.
Like we said, you know who the top dogs are, and then you have that little middle stage like right below them, and that bottom section is really just.
You're 8, 9, 10.
There's a bunch of really, really good players that play in the NBA. It's just what you like, what you don't like.
If you like Twizzlers or you like Reese's.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, yeah.
Essentially, all 5 of us have 32 players that made all 5 of our lists. So that's 32 of everybody's 50. And then after that, there's a bunch of guys that made most of our lists. There's quite a few guys that made 4 lists. And a few guys that made 3 lists. So really, we're just still at this point in the podcast, really, we're just arguing over the last 10 guys on everybody's 50.
Yeah, we've been doing 9 and 10 almost the entire
yeah,
time.
yeah.
Pretty much.
Because this is my 10 power forward.
Outside of like
What are
2 or
we-
3 people, we're arguing over 9 and 10 every time.
Yeah, we are. And but we're coming up on a stage where guys are going to start moving, where we're going to get a guy where we're arguing. We're like, hey, so and so's got him at 18, like. So it's not just on their list. He's 18, and you don't even have him on your list.
Steph Curry. Steph Curry. Let's just go and be honest.
A lively discussion.
Steph Curry.
That's a little while in the future because he made 4 lists.
But that's what I'm saying. Like the difference between no list and I think me and Drew have him pretty high, and then you two are like in the middle.
Yeah.
He's literally spread out everywhere to
Yeah.
no list to near the top to the middle.
Yep.
Like
Steph Curry is going to feel the wrath of Zeus.
Go Ray.
There is. I mean, Rick Barry is another one that
He's
it
coming
falls
up
into that
like
category.
pretty soon.
Well, I think we all have him, but Bill
No.
Russell
Oh.
fluctuates a lot.
Bill Russell has some fluctuation. So does Reggie Miller.
Yeah,
But Rick Barry only made 3 lists.
I've already stated. I just forgot him.
But he's pretty high on my list. I don't know where he's at on your two's list, but he's pretty high on mine.
Here's the funny part: is you've been like the personality police, and he is like the biggest dick in the world.
He is.
Which is funny that
Rick
you put him
Barry's
that high.
24 on my list.
Oh, so he's fairly high on yours then, Drew.
Yeah.
He's a small forward, correct, or shooting
Small
guard?
forward, small
Alex, you
forward.
have him at 23, so.
I'm
Yeah.
try and see where I would have put
23
him.
and 24 there. There you go.
I'm trying to dictate where I would have put him. Give me a second here.
My dad has him at 30.
So we're fairly close. The 3 of us are fairly close, right there in the middle. I think he's either 5 or 6 on my shooting guard list
I think
or
he's-
small forward
I
list.
think he's 7 on my small forward. So
He's 7 on my
ABA
small
discussion
forwards.
that night too because he played in that for a while.
Yeah, that always muddles things up.
Yes,
And
it does.
hated by everyone in the NBA and his own teammates.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, he was a dick. Yeah. Are we done on Chris Webber?
Yeah, I think it's closing statement time, guys.
I'll go. I mean, I don't have a problem with him being on your all's list. He was very good. But like we just said, the bottom of the list are a hot mess. He's obviously underachieved, which I think was pretty much the main part of this conversation. I think he left a sour taste in most people's mouths, I think is the big thing. You kind of looked at him and were like, he was good, but he could have done so much more. I mean, I think when you don't like someone or you just constantly look at them and think they underachieved or they did something that really got on your nerves, you seem to kind of go away from them. And I think that's kind of what happened with Chris Webber. I think you can compare him to some people stat-wise, and he is right there or better than them. So that's probably why I'd say I have no problem with him being on anyone's list. I mean, he was a monster. But I think we've all stated all the stuff that he did. I have Pettit and Davis on my list. I personally just like them a little more, but that's pretty much it.
For me, I mean, like I said, I really like the Sacramento team. It's really exciting to watch them, but I mean, he just couldn't hit that next level. For me, at my bottom, I got Rodman and Kemp. Those two, stood out more to me than Weber probably ever would. I really don't know what else to say about Weber. Before I seen him on your guys' list, I really didn't think about he was I'm like, okay, cool, Weber made a list, but he was never in my mind to go on a top 50 list at all. I never really thought about him. Kemp and Rodman's more fluent in my mind than Weber, but I mean, I'm not denying that he was talented. He just kind of squandered his chance, and that's why he's more of a memory than more of, Hall of Famer.
I think the Wade and Ray covered it pretty well. They the squandered issue, the lack of hardware, regardless of whether it's rings or rewards or whatever it is. I did though include Weber in my original power forward list as far as guys I researched for my top 50. Weber made my list, and was not ridiculously far off my 10. Like, I don't remember where exactly he was, but I would say he was 12 to 15, somewhere in there on my power forward list. I can't remember exactly where. And like I said, I enjoyed watching those Sacramento Kings teams. Thought they were a lot of fun. They actually won 60 games one year. They won 59 the year after that.
I was about to say, in 2002, they were the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. They had home court.
And they led the league in scoring both those years. Like, they were fun. They were in a great offense. They had a lot of fun players, flashy players. They were fun to watch, especially when they had Jay Will instead of Bibby. You know, Bibby's better, but Jay Will's so much fun. But Weber did miss my list, you know, for the reasons I listed, and Weber again is another big what-if guy to me. I love Penny. He's my all-time favorite player, so I don't wish this, but what if Orlando would have kept him? And him and Shaq would have played together in Orlando instead of Penny and Shaq. You know, that would have been potentially unfathomable. And we're also talking about 93, not 2003, where the NBA is getting ready to change. So we would have played with 2 big men for at least another decade. So anyway, that's my closing statement on Weber.
Well, again, we're talking bottom of the list. He barely made my top 50. Barely made my power forward list. He was very talented. He was fun to watch play in Sacramento, etc. I think I looked at some of these other guys at the bottom of my list, and maybe I got caught up a little bit in not trying to be biased. I like Pau Gasol an awful lot. But because I'm a Laker fan, maybe I passed him over and put Weber on there instead. There have been some pretty good cases made for, like, Chris Bosh. I'm looking forward to the Dennis Rodman episode to see how that pans out. There might be a change at the bottom, but for now, I still think we need to discuss Chris.
Well, everything you said, but I have Dennis Rodman on my list, so I'm just going to throw that out there. I just think Chris Webber, some of his statistics are a little better than some of these other people's lower power forwards, and that's where I bumped him up to my number 10 power forward. So, but he did have some problems. Trivia time, Alex?
Yeah, I think that wraps up the Chris Webber portion of this episode. So we can bounce right over to trivia. Who has the first question ready?
I can go.
All right, Willard.
I'll say the Nets franchise, as they've been to multiple locations. Who is their all-time leader in career rebounds? The Nets.
I don't know that I know the answer to this. Damn it.
By the way, Blake Griffin dunked tonight.
There we go.
Random there, okay.
I just saw it.
Hey, that says something right there. When a guy for the first 6 years of his career had over 200 dunks a year, and now we're like, hey guys, it's awesome. Blake Griffin dunked tonight.
Yeah. For the first time in a year and a half.
Yeah. We were just been talking about it for weeks now.
We did just talk about it the other day.
Yeah, we did.
Okay, everybody got answers?
I don't. Hold on.
Okay.
Career leader in rebounds for the Nets. Holy cow.
I've got mine.
Yeah, I got one.
I'd be surprised how many of these are just. I was trying to find a good one to make people think, and obviously you go all these teams with these great centers. It's like, well, that one's obvious. This one's obvious.
All right, I'm ready.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and go with this one.
Okie dokie, let's go.
All right.
I put Brooke Lopez.
I put Brooke Lopez.
Okay.
I said Kenyon Martin.
Oh,
Ooh, that's a
okay.
good one. Oh,
I'll say Coleman.
Coleman and who do you have? Lopez.
Lopez.
I think were in the top 3. They were 2 and 3. Number 1 is Buck Williams.
Buck Williams.
I
Oh
couldn't
my
remember his name. I was trying to come up with the name because I knew he made a bunch of all-star teams with them.
He slaughtered everybody. He had 9,000. I think Brooke Lopez was second with 4,000.
Oh, wow.
And then Coleman was right behind Lopez.
Nice one, Wade. Anybody want to go next?
I'll go ahead. All right. Which team did Lenny Wilkins lead to an NBA championship?
I don't know. Did he lead a team?
Who's it again?
Said, which team did Lenny Wilkins lead to an NBA championship?
I got mine.
Say I don't even know who that is.
Well, he's like third all time in wins as a coach.
Yeah, he coached the Hawks for the
Yeah.
longest time.
So if that tells you anything, he played a long, long time ago.
Oh, well, let me think of an old team.
There's a lot of old teams.
I know. That one goes super old. But I think I'm going to pick one that's not been around, like right now.
If you want, I'll give you a year hint.
Sure.
79.
Oh, I'm gonna erase my answer now. 79.
Who went to the...
I'm just keeping mine. I don't care.
I got one. 79. Holy cow!
Bum, bum, bum.
All right, I'm ready.
All right.
Said Seattle.
I put
Okay.
this. I put
Seattle.
the Sonics.
I didn't write anything down. I was dumbfounded.
All right. The correct answer is the Supersonics.
Yeah, there we go.
You got
Yeah.
3 points.
Wilkins
wasn't
Wil-
Dennis Johnson also on that team?
Yeah, I believe DJ was on that team.
Didn't he win Finals MVP?
That I'm not sure about. But
I
they
know
were,
DJ
they were a fun team to watch.
I know DJ used to put up pretty crazy stats before he went to Boston. So I mean, he was good.
Wade, you got that one right?
Yes.
And Doug, you got that one right, correct? Yep. And
Mm.
Drew, you had no answer at all.
My lead
I had no
expands
idea.
over Drew.
I had no idea.
All right.
A little before your time.
79 was just a little bit. Saying next year you
Well,
graduate high school, Dad.
I don't say it's before everyone's time. It's Uncle Doug.
I was gonna say I wasn't born yet either, but
Yeah.
Doug, you ready to go?
Sure, I'll go. I try to tie mine into the night's topic. So tonight we're going to talk Fab Five.
Oh, shoot.
C. Webb, Jalen Rose, Juwan Howard. Who were the other two?
I know one for sure, and now I'm sitting here going, who was the fifth one?
I will tell you that, of course, C. Webb, Rose, and Howard went on to good NBA careers. One of the other two made it to the NBA for a very short period of time, and the fifth one did not make it. He played in the CBA, but never caught on really with the NBA.
Dang. I'm going to miss this because I can't think of this guy's name.
I don't know, so I just put down random weird players in the NBA.
Yep.
All right. I'm ready.
Well, I'm going to answer this one, so let's see. Who played back?
Yeah, just list random weird players is what I did.
I'm ready.
It's down to you, Alex. No one else knows. Huh?
I said I was ready.
No, I'm saying you're the only one that knows the answer or might know the answer. We're
Yeah,
good.
I'm ready.
All right, let's hear it, guys.
Tom Chambers and James Coleman.
I put Scott Pollard and Raja Bell.
Oh, not Scott Pollard.
Scott Pollard.
Who is Scott Pollard? Went to Kansas.
Yes, he
Google
did.
Google Scott Pollard.
All right, I just went some random names. I said Snake Plissken and Jack Bauer.
Okay.
Jack Bauer.
Well, I know for a fact one of them's name is King,
That's correct, Jimmy King. And he did make the NBA.
but the other one I don't know, so I put Johnson.
Ray Jackson.
Jackson.
So
You were
close.
close. You were close.
Damn it. Damn it. Who's that leave? Me
And me.
and Drew. You ready or you want me to go?
You can go.
All right. I got a real tricky one for you guys tonight. What NBA team in China is named the Red Oxen? So, NBA team in China is called the Red Oxen.
I got one. That's probably gonna be something stupid like the Pelicans or something.
Yeah, really.
The Red Oxen.
I got
I'm
one.
just going to go with the
Probably the Rockets or something.
Yeah.
Yao Ming played for.
Okay.
All right, everybody.
Yeah. Are we doing? How about the Bulls?
I put the Bulls too.
Bulls.
It is the Bulls.
Thank
All
God.
right,
Oh,
yeah.
thank God there was an obvious one. I scored a point this week. Been in a drought, guys. It's been like a month.
Can't wait till this podcast comes out and I'm speaking Chinese accent over here. Okay.
Yeah,
we might get closed.
Yeah. You are a racist. Oh.
All right, Drew.
Who was the first rookie of the year for the New York Knicks?
I don't know when they started giving Rookie of the Year.
One of my questions always so controversial.
I'm not. It's not a bad question. I just
Right.
don't know when they started giving it.
I got one. Now I feel like it's wrong because I feel like me and Uncle Doug have the same idea.
Hope I picked the right player. That's what a
Alright, I
bull
got an
makes.
idea.
That's
Or
the
the
sound a bull
red
makes.
ox-
I'm not even sure
Red
if he's on
oxen.
this team as a rookie. I'm just guessing. All right, I'm ready.
Okay, ready?
Yep.
How about Ewing?
I started with Ewing, but I went Bernard King.
I also went Bernard King.
That's exactly what I put too.
Willis Reed.
Oh.
In the 60s?
Wow.
I
They
never
gave
gave
out
up.
Rookie of the Year in the 60s?
Mm-hmm.
I did not realize it went that far back.
Me neither.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
because I thought
crazy.
about Frazier and I was like, oh, that might be too old. But it was even earlier than that.
Yeah.
All right, that's everybody, correct?
Yep.
All right, so we actually gave out a whole bunch of points this week for the first time in a while. So the standings are as follows: Ray with 13,
Woo!
Alex with 19, Doug and Drew both with 25, and Wade with 29.
Woo woo.
So, Wade extends his lead again. That being said, we appreciate you tuning in for our Chris Webber episode. And we will appreciate you tuning in next week for our James Harden episode. Is that correct? Are we James Harden next week?
Yeah.
Yep, James Harden. And who will be defended by Wade and Drew?
Wade and Drew, yep.
Yeah, I know. I'm real prepared here. Sorry, guys.
We're changing the minds next week.
It's going to be interesting. You two like to piggyback off other people's arguments, so it's going to be interesting to see what you two
We've
do.
already discussed while watching South Park. Don't worry.
That's true. This is true.
Who's going to be Kenny and die during the episode?
You got to fall on that sword, buddy.
You bastard.
I'm definitely Cartman.
I'm not Kyle.
So anyway, we appreciate your listen. Please tune in next Thursday for the James Harden episode. And thanks for listening to Sports the NEMO Way.